And we'll start recording the Self-Publishing Roundtable, Indie Publishing News and Views with Erica Conroy and Xavier Granville. I'm also Robert Shazchute of allthatshaz.com. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Let's start. And right after the traffic report, go. FAB, Thunderbirds are go.
Blabbity, 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 blab.
FAB.
Blabbity,
Okay, well,
You've had coffee today.
I've had coffee today. I have the nervous system of a squirrel. I can see through time and walls.
Specifically, beige-colored walls.
Hey, everybody, we've got a show. Erica, go!
Okay, well, as Robert has pointed out and introduced us all, I'll skip that point. But this is our first blab. This is a Self-Publishing Roundtable. We usually hang out on Google and in iTunes, as well as on our website. So if you want to find out more about us, go to selfpublishingroundtable.com. We usually do weekly interviews on Thursday America time. And but we thought we would go back to our roots with Blab and go back to actually roundtabling the news that's happened over the past week or so in the indie publishing news, or also anything that might be relevant to us, like technology or something that will help us as indie authors and indie publishers. So, who wants to start? Robert, your news item, please.
I have been volunteered. I would like to talk about scriptwriting, and I'll tell you why. I was having a chat with an author last night, and we were talking about, book income went down a little bit in the second half of this year. So going a little bit slower. The rewards in being on Kindle have gone down slightly. I'm actually thinking about widening out, because I've been all in on Amazon, because all the other platforms, with some few exceptions in some minor ways, suck.
So Amazon just makes it so easy.
Amazon makes it so easy, yeah. And so I've been all in on Amazon, but now I'm thinking about going wider. I have thought about this stuff before. Hey, George, thanks a lot for the support. But the issue of scriptwriting is that there is now a market that's bigger and wider than just the books that we've been ignoring. I've got lots of content that I could put on into screenwriting, and there's 3 apps that I'd like to mention. One is Final Draft, that's $250. There's Celtics, which is free, and Amazon Storywriter. And the interesting thing about Amazon Storywriter, besides being free, is that attached to it is a submit button, so you can go directly to Amazon.
Ooh.
So if you come up with a script, you can think about sending it directly to Amazon or Netflix. And the reason I mention these 2 platforms in particular is that they have decided to expand, like double what they're doing for the next year or so. So there's going to be so much more available on Netflix, and a lot more original content on Netflix and Amazon.
Yeah, I see that Netflix is just announcing start dates for 10 original shows.
Yeah,
so
very exciting.
They are expanding.
Yes, and that means there's a market for the kind of content that we could possibly provide. And if you already have a book, you could adapt what you already got. So I'm thinking of the Hitman series for me, and I've got a Ghosts and Demons series, which I think of all the stuff that I've written, that would be most adaptable to the screen. So if you're thinking about it, the apps that make it easy are Amazon Storywriter, which is free, Celtics, which is CELTX, which is free. You can upgrade it if you want to spend like some nominal amount of money, or Final Draft, which is $250, which is like the industry standard for these apps. So something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely recommend Celtics. I was trained on Final Draft when I went through my screenwriting classes for film school, and the Final Draft, like Robert mentioned, it is the industry standard. So if you are trying to approach this as a professional and submitting these as certain agents will only accept final draft watermarked things. It depends on who you're submitting these things to. So, yeah, final draft is definitely recommended if you're going to be approaching the industry professionally, whereas Celtics is a perfect place to dip your toes into the water and to learn at least the ins and outs of screenwriting, because, like Robert mentioned, it is pretty simple once you get down to it. You don't have to do near as much laborious typing or exposition or typing. It's as simple as writing. Man walks into room, cut to. But there is a certain standard to that. So I would recommend, on top of the software that Robert's mentioning, do have a look at some screenwriting books. I recommend the Screenwriter's Workbook by Sid Field. That's a really good one.
I don't have too much to add to this one, but it could be something I could check out, because I've actually done script writing as part of a university course. But yeah, it's just not something that I've thought about. Usually what you hear is people saying you should have your print copy, you should go into audio, but it's going for a script is definitely a different way of doing it. Especially if you do want to go and, get those movie rights or whatever it is, sold to whoever. I guess doing it yourself is one way to help push that process along.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than it used to be for certain, especially with StoryWriter and Amazon being much more open to direct contact. Mm-hmm. Now, I should also mention that there are people who are very, if you look at the comments on Amazon StoryWriter, you'll see a lot of people who are very suspicious of Amazon. And they'll go, well, they're worried about rights and whatnot. That seemed to me, as I read more of those comments, it seemed like it was more of a knee-jerk negativity as opposed to really looking at the app seriously. Mm. But there's always going to be a bit of that. Don't let that deter you.
I think probably Amazon is the least likely to screw you over in terms of copyright, because anyone can do it. As David Gaughran's found out recently, when a reader actually contacted him and said, "Hey, I've just received this email from this thing I've signed up to, and there's 2,400 words from his book, Let's Get Visible, has been used in that email without his knowledge or permission, in a promotional email from something called About for the KD Spy, which is apparently the new name for Kindle Spy. But the link goes to a suspicious-looking PayPal account instead of to the KD Spy site." And the people who sent this email out are known as indiewritersupport.com, and they're also affiliated with a publisher called Paradon Book Publishing. And that publisher has been receiving, there's lots of online complaints about it being a crappy vanity press and charging reading fees and things like that. But the publisher also claims to be a partnership with some big promotional sites like BookPub. And they obviously, it makes it sound like they're an affiliate selling Kindle Spy. So David contacted the Kindle Spy peeps to see if he could get the guy's affiliate account closed, so we wouldn't make any money off of breaching David's copyright or anything like this. And Kindle Spy said that he wasn't actually affiliated with them, and that they were already chasing up for potentially pirating their software. And it's even more interesting because another reader did some investigating for David and found some aliases for the guy who's behind all of this and what they thought was the person's real name. And that there's currently 2 warrants out for this guy's arrest.
Yeah, I think it's up to 3 now, actually.
Oh, yeah, I think that's what he said, yeah. So David, of course, being David, goes to Twitter and wants to inform and warn others that, he in no way endorses this. He had no idea about it, and to warn people about Indie Writers Support. And he also, being David, tags Indie Writers Support Twitter account into it. And then a Twitter back and forth ensues, and it's just basically
and then the fun begins.
Yeah, it's basic stupidity on their part. They admit to it, although they say, we don't know who you are, so how could we do this? And then, according to them, anything found on Google is fair game. It's fair use. And David's like taking...
Is wrong, by the way.
taking to educating them on that one.
Is that true? Is that true?
Yeah, wow. That's not true.
Wow.
Always reinforce that's not true.
Yeah. And they also came up with, they ended it with that he should be grateful for the free exposure.
Yeah. Which David calls the E word, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all tired of that one.
I think if anyone who's self-employed, I think is tired of the word exposure no matter what. It just tends to be something that, well, we can't pay you, but we can give you this E word. Yeah.
I think the most interesting part of that article to me was the, I forget who it was. It might have been in the comments or it might have been what David said about how if you get a notice that your book has been pirated, a lot of those pirate sites are really just phishing scams where they're just going for credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of people, if their book gets pirated, and if you write a book, the chances that it's getting pirated somewhere are excellent. They'll go crazy with trying to get take down notices, and they'll get upset about it and all that. But when I look at those pirate sites, I think, well, one, those are probably people who wouldn't buy my book anyway.
Mm-hmm,
Two, there's an excellent chance they're getting malware on if they dare to download it, which I wouldn't do personally. I've never done anything from a pirate site. And three, now it turns out that a bunch of them are phishing scams, so it's even more of a dark alley than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's neat that David went after him and pursued it as much as he has, because he's really got him by the short and curlies now.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll deter others, but I don't know.
And who's to say he just doesn't close up shop and set up again later on down the track under a different name? Yeah. Anyway.
Well, if the sheriff doesn't get him first, because they're closing in.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that one, X?
I think as far as it goes, there's always going to be those people that are going to be trying to rip whatever off. No matter, there's always going to be that underlying element of it, and it's hard to avoid it no matter what. So I think in David's case, he did exactly what he should have done when it comes to essentially claiming information, stolen information as their own, or using that as a means to profit off of. That's defamatory to his character and his work and his time and all these various things. He did exactly what he should have done as far as looking into the matter and at least calling the bannerman essentially, taking it to Twitter. But when it comes to the things like your book being on a torrent site or one of these random that's unavoidable, and sometimes you can kind of look at that as at least that's some traffic, because a lot of as far as films and music and stuff like that those stuff are torrented all the times, and sometimes, unfortunately, to bring up the E word again, that is how a lot of people get a lot of exposure these days. So it's you don't. It's not something that you want to encourage, but but at the same time, it's kind of unavoidable, and you can't fight every battle when it comes to that.
Yeah, at one point I was actually considering torrenting my books myself. That way I could include something in there that says, hey, thank you for reading my book. If you enjoyed it, could you please go and buy it from somewhere? Or this is my links to my other books, which you can purchase. Just something like that. Just especially when I was starting out, I was considering that as a means for exposure. But people are more likely to torrent the the bestsellers or whatever, as opposed to little old me just starting out with my, my first book, Firefly or whatever it was, Love and Space. Ooh. But yeah.
Well, and that's.
Well, there have been some authors who have felt that I know Neil Gaiman made an argument that he actually opened up a market for his books in Russia that wasn't there before. As
someone had scanned each
so,
page of his graphic novel or something and uploaded it, and that was how he got that exposure. And instead of going and doing a DMCA takedown or whatever it was, he actually got onto the forums where it was and was talking to the people who had been reading his book that way. And he was, if you want any more, I've got heaps of other books.
It's interesting. I was at a Raiders conference with a bunch of traditional authors a few years ago, and they were very focused on how do we stop all this pirating, and it doesn't work. And the people on the panel were saying, well, we'll use better security on our books. It's like, no, it doesn't work. So it's this irresistible force, immovable object. It's not going to change. I don't condone it. I'm not particularly happy about it. But I'm also not going to worry about it because I don't worry about things I can't control.
It's a lot of effort and time that could be spent, writing another book, publishing another book, doing marketing.
That's right. I got scripts. I've got scripts to write. I've got books to write. I've got women.
I got women to worry about what I can't control. That's how it started.
Well, that was my internal monologue. I always keep that on the internal monologue. Thank you.
Okay, so have we beat that one to death? Shall we move on to?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go back to, since you mentioned, Robert, that you are in predominantly Kindle Select. Is that correct? Yeah. So am I. And X, I think, has gone wide, so he probably doesn't give a fuck about what we're going to talk about next.
No, Dinosaur Noirs and Select.
Oh, is it? I thought you'd removed everything. Okay, so this does affect you then. So just the other day, the KENPC amounts came out. So that's the amounts we've been paid per page read. And for December, it had gone down again to 0.004613 for America, for American sales. So November before that had been 0.004919, which was up slightly over October, but still down from when it started.
So for people who aren't familiar with this is the number. That's the amount of money you're paid per page that you read electronically on Amazon.
So
through the Kindle Select program,
we've got the usual reactions of, oh my fucking God, I have to get out of Kindle Select. And the other ones of, I don't care, it's more exposure, that E-word again. And it's just cream on the top of the sales that I'm actually making. How have you guys reacted, if at all?
I have not reacted. Go ahead, X.
I think it's interesting how the page, like the article that you had sent, Erica. I think it's interesting to see how the budget, no matter what, is always going up, and yet the give out per page read is steadily going down.
Well, it's a bulk funding model. So for those of you not familiar with bulk funding, is you've got a set amount in the pot, right? And if there's all these people getting their pages read, so it's a division of what's divided from that set amount. And because Amazon keep putting the amount up, it's obviously showing that more people are in Kindle Select and more Kindle Unlimited subscribers are reading pages. So that's why they keep topping up. So it would be far worse for us in terms of payout if they weren't topping up. But I wonder how far they're willing to go. We're talking how many millions now per month that they're dishing out for Kindle Unlimited pages. Oh, it's got to be something like 15.
Yeah, but I think the counter argument is that the sky's the limit because they're really interested in
that's
selling
the thing I
TVs, not
think that
books.
people are forgetting is that they might have started out in books, but they've expanded so far. They sell anything and everything. So yeah, but it's like a gateway drug, isn't it? Get them in with the ebooks, and then mention, oh, by the way, we sell TVs, shower heads, and
Check out this affiliate link.
Food.
Well, that's really made a huge difference in my life this year. For at Christmas time, I noticed it. I was going to talk about this. I was building a computer with my son, and we ordered from Tiger Direct. We ordered, motherboard and all the stuff that the squirrels and the wheels that go inside the computer. And it was interesting because some of the stuff we got from Amazon and some of the stuff we got from Tiger Direct. And what Amazon is really good at is making customers happy and delivering fast, and you get what you want. And they have inventory control. And what I discovered was Tiger Direct did not have inventory control. We would order something, and they'd say, first they gave us a really hard time about approving the order. I got 3 phone calls instead of just the one-click buy. Then I got this nonsense about, yes, you've ordered it. Oh, it turns out we don't have that. And you'd never get that from Amazon. And meanwhile, Amazon was delivering everything that we asked for, like, incredibly fast. So I stayed out of malls, which helped my blood pressure immensely.
Oh, what's a mall?
I got to, a mall, yeah. We ended up getting most of our help from Amazon. And also, I was terrified about returning anything to Tiger Direct because of all the problems we had ordering. Meanwhile, I had to return three things to Amazon, and returning stuff to Amazon is incredibly easy. I returned 3 things because they either didn't fit or they weren't the right thing that we needed, and it was just take it down to the post office, slap the sticker on it, and no postage. It's just done. So as much complaining as there is about Amazon, there's a lot that these other platforms have to improve. And yes, I am in Canada, sir. As RX. So it's it was an interesting comparison, side by side comparison, to see how each company could or could not deliver, which gets back to the whole KDP funding issue. Is as bad as it can be when you watch those numbers come down on the reading per page. When you compare it to the other options, now there are some exceptions. Like some people do find that they do better with their books on Apple, for instance, if they're in particular genres. But I got into a talk with somebody about how he thought that he was going to make big bucks on Smashwords. And I said, I have never met, I talk to authors all the time, and I have never met anyone who's made anything on Smashwords.
I don't expect to sell
well, he was yeah. No. Well, it's not a destination for readers, right? It's not a marketplace. The only people who go there are writers, and it's usually for your first book, and then you go on to other things. But this was just a new author who didn't know the lay of the land, and he had, I guess he kind of thought that some of the propaganda put out from Smashwords was all real. And I said, no, this is the real world experience of people who I know who've used Smashwords. And, and if you are considering Smashwords, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but I am saying that you should check out Draft to Digital if that's what you're thinking of. They make easier upload to Apple, and also because uploading to Apple can be a nightmare. They're not very user friendly. And Smashwords, one thing that bothered me was you have to put published by Smashwords instead of your own imprint. So that can be a little bit complicated, where Draft to Digital is very easy to use for if you want to go wide instead of just going with Amazon. So one of the reasons that I liked Smashwords in the beginning was they had these vouchers, so you could give away free. You give somebody a code and say, if you want to review my book, here's where you can go download the free copy. And I tried it once and it didn't work. And I thought, I was kind of hoping that the other platforms would emulate the best practices of Amazon. And what we see continuously, this is over the course of years. I mean, I was writing about this years ago on my blog, how, the other platforms, if they're going to do as well as Amazon, they have to emulate those best practices. And so far, they have certainly not done that. Like they work on a different model. They work on more of a bookstore model
well,
as opposed
the
to a search
bookstore
engine
model's
model.
changing. I mean, it's no longer a physical bookstore you've got. It's more a stationary gift store, and in Barnes and Noble's case, alcohol. So even the bookstore model is not working for actual physical bookstores anymore. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, I call it dustables. They sell a whole lot of dustables and coffee. So yeah, there's a whole lot of frustrations with the other platforms besides Amazon. So on the one hand, yes, you can see where Amazon is not as advantageous as it used to be. As far as I can see, for my genres, it seems like they're still far ahead of the other options. So are you going to leave KDP because of the downward spiraling price on the page count? Maybe, a lot of people have fled the program because of that. But then when they flee that program, they go wide, and they often find that they're not making more money anyway.
It really depends.
So it can be a bit frustrating
for everyone, and it's very much a personal decision you have to make. But for people who write shorter lengths of books, the change in Kindle Unlimited and the payouts has hit them probably much harder. But I guess novels and anything longer than a novella or novelette, there's still an advantage to it. And a lot of people adopt this approach to it. They put the new release in KDP Select for the first 90 days, and then they go wide. So they get that big boost from the visibility of being part of Kindle Unlimited, but then they can cater to like the wider audience. Because once you leave KDP Select, people have reported their visibility has just dropped like a stone pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's generally true, and we should also point out that getting in KDP Select doesn't necessarily translate to a big boost. It could be a little boost, and even that little boost can be better than being on, name a platform, and there you go. Yeah. I think it's about 80% of books generally. It's all sold through Amazon. I think that's the last thing I heard.
I might look to eventually taking some of my books out. It would probably be one whole series though, and that way I could do a comparison. But yeah, it will be interesting. Maybe I'll document it and everyone can see how it's going. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It's a little awesome.
Yeah. So, is there anything else we want to add to that, or should we get to the tech news, which looks fucking awesome? Okay, so
let's look at tech news.
This is cool. So there's, I don't know if everyone knows this, but for those people who are sight impaired or completely blind, they, reliant on Braille for reading. And while there are some like Braille e-reader devices out there, they're usually quite limited to being only able to do one line of Braille at a time. But there's this Kindle-style Braille e-reader that's coming out, or is still in the process of being refined at the moment, which is a refreshable Braille display, and it contains a hell of a lot more raised bumped lines than just the typical ones that are out there at the moment. What do you guys have to think about this? I know it won't directly impact you guys as readers, but might that help you as writers or people who are sight impaired or blind?
I thought the tech itself was kind of fascinating, how they're using like a pneumatic pneumatic pressure to raise bubbles on the screen for Braille readers. That there's something about that that's just sounded kind of steampunk in and of itself. Whether the tech will be there, there was some comment from someone who is blind in the comments saying, we've been anticipating this kind of device for a long time, and so far it hasn't been delivered. I think eventually it will be delivered. Whether this will be the one that delivers on the full promise, we're going to have to wait and see. But I hope that this comes soon, because as it is, I'm still frustrated as a Canadian author. I can't get into ACX, so I can't reach those readers through audiobooks yet, because ACX still does not recognize that.
Well, the same thing
Canadians are people
in New Zealand. I believe have they expanded out to the UK recently as well? Is that?
Yeah, they're in America and they're in the UK, but they're not available anywhere else.
But there are ways to get around that. I mean, there are people who have set up corporations where you can go through them to get to ACX. It's just up to you if you want to do that. How determined are you to get into audiobooks?
And it's not a boot how I say a boot.
But
I'd pay somebody else to do
do
the reading. We're just perpetuating the problem.
Just Canadians, we're just making it worse.
We've talked about this.
We know
We've
it's
talked about this in the meetings.
We get it.
No.
Right, buddy? Yeah.
But at the moment, I guess the only real alternative for them, for blind and sight impaired people, is, as you said, is audio, because you can get stuff to read things out, but it reads it out in a computer voice. So that is an option, and I'm not sure how great that would be if you were wanting to read erotica. That's not something you want read out loud. I mean, I guess headphones are required in this instance, but that could be.
I don't know. It might be kind of entertaining here, the Microsoft Sam voice narrating it, though.
Might be better if Siri.
Fiona picked up the whip.
But
actually, that's a real issue. I've got a app that I use for proofreading, where it reads it to me, and there's the regular Mac computer voice, and then there's the voice that you have to actually purchase, and you purchase the license for it. And if you're listening to a whole book in that Mac computer voice that is not quite, it's still in the uncanny valley, it's not quite right, it is just death. It is horrible to listen to over the period of time. So I proofread listening to, I think it's a U.S. American female in her 30s named Heather. And I can listen to the whole, 100,000 words, whatever, in that voice. But if I have to listen to the voices that you don't pay for, it is not acceptable. It just grinds. It gives you a headache. It's just awful. So it's a great way to proofread, but you really it's interesting how some people were thinking that they could make the jump to audiobooks by getting an artificial robot reader to do it for you. And I've listened to some of those books that have tried that, and it's egregious. It's just not working.
Okay, so we're probably jogging along a bit here. Is there anything else anyone wants to add? Any other news or any other comments on what we've discussed before we leave?
Yes. Do we have any questions?
I think they want you to say the
audience?
schedule, in your Canadian accent.
Schedule.
Schedule. Schedule. Galoshes.
Yes.
Schedule. Yes. Yes. You're very
probably just do
fair,
a
Miss Moneypenny.
Canadian podcast.
But you are English and I am Scottish. So naturally, I want your head on a pike.
Okay, I think we should probably
I'm
end it.
glad.
If you guys want to hear more
Right on schedule.
of the dulcet tones of my Canadian counterparts, then check us out on self-publishingroundtable.com. And we will also be recording live on YouTube on Thursday, American time. So that's 7 p.m. PST and 10 p.m. EST. And if you're in another part of the world, I recommend you look up World Time Buddy or something like that to find out when on earth that is. We usually do interviews, but we've started to do blabs. This is our first blab, so thank you for coming in and watching us and listening to us. We will have this up later on our website as an audio and as the video as well. So remember to check us out on self-publishingroundtable.com. Thank you to Robert, and thank you to Xavier for joining me. Thank you to our audience as well. Thank you for putting up with us. Cheers.
Thank you for all these things.
Cheers. You can find me at allthatchaz.com. Chaz is with 2 Z's, 2 Z's if you're nasty.
Yourself?
Theideapool.org.
And I'm at ericaconroy.com. Thank you.